wine in France. And
hey, good morning, everybody. This is John Spielkel with GAI Insights with our Gen AI news briefing today. Weird says it is. We're having trouble streaming to your destination.
Don't worry about it, John. Just keep going.
Yeah. Okay, just keep going. All righty. Very good for getting that error message. It's great to be with you all. We've got we have 6 articles this morning, and we're going to start with a few here, about 3 or 4 of them that may be optional. A couple of them seem like nothing burgers, but we're going to review them because they're big announcements from organizations. And then there's a couple of others we're going to deal with in terms of comparative advantage. And then really an unexpected application in the construction industry of Gen AI, really committed to by one of the large Australian constructors. So with that, if we get into our briefing here, I'd like to have Paul deal with this first article in terms of using red teaming for large AI models. Paul, could you give us your impression on this one?
Yeah, I mean, red teaming's essentially testing for security vulnerabilities. I think this is an obvious next step. It's important task that IT systems need to do. I have it as optional.
Yeah. Other reactions to this?
Yep, I agree. The only interesting point really here was that should these be, particularly with AI, more public because of the danger that's implied, which at one level is a crazy suggestion. At another level, it's just another indication of we don't really understand how to deal with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I will give the journalist, a good grade for making something out of nothing here. I think it's a couple of things already known, and they probably they're on deadline and they came up with something. So God love them. Optional it is. All right, let's turn to our next one, which is Apple and its never-ending series of pre-announcement announcements. Adam.
So there's some interesting developments here on the research side. I'll try and summarize it. Basically, if you have better training data, you get better models, which isn't really a breakthrough, as much as they seem to claim it is. For people who are wondering more about what Apple's doing, the research article associated with this is worth having a look at because it goes pretty deep into how they're building their generative models. But this news itself is really optional overall for our busy execs.
The big O.
Tim gives it the big O. Okay, it is optional. I thought there's some stuff in there too about how they, did the model training by, selective. I can't remember the term. Anyway, basically decomposition of the model to get higher performance.
Yeah, these kind of things are going to happen. When Apple comes out with stuff, I think it'll be quite intriguing.
Yes.
It'll have a real impact on many, many industries, particularly entertainment, graphics artists, but I'm coming out with diddly yet.
Yeah.
Come June at the Worldwide Developer Conference, then I'm sure we'll have something to say about Apple. But for the next 3 months here, it's probably going to be a bunch of optional news.
Yeah.
All righty. We'll see if they can deliver. All right. Tim, could you take us to the next one where Mercedes, joining the pack here, is beginning to use humanoid robots from the same people.
Anybody who's been watching us knows we love robots.
Yes.
And here is another one working with another car company. So big O. I mean, it's interesting, and it's another indication of the seriousness and the rate at which robotics is, and this particular type of robotics, again, we forget how much robotics have already been in use, particularly in manufacturing, but very specialized robotics. These are humanoid robotics with very dexterous fingers and capable of doing a lot of different things. So that's interesting. But beyond that, this is just an announcement of an early pilot.
All right. Announcement of early pilot. Going for optional. So far, we have 3 optionals. Any objections?
No, I just want to know. I do find it interesting just to viscerally watching a robotic arm move something around doesn't seem to affect people. But when you see a robot that's got arms and legs, it's just emotionally a whole different another level.
It's the face, actually.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
99% of what makes us react is faces.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
point.
that's the stuff we talked about before a little bit. Sherry Turkle's work on simian cues. You know, the whole notion of, you know, what how do you get someone to relate to a thing and make it look like an ape or a human, and you're off to the races. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. All right, next we go to Grok and X. I still want to call it Twitter. Paul, what do you think?
You know, we've covered this before. I would I actually rate this essential, just as for leaders understand that the war of open and close continues to escalate with a lot of different new entrants. So we've seen Inflection and Claude from Anthropic in the last few weeks. Now we've got open source, and open source is leaning in, or I mean, Grok from X. Twitter, they continue to lean in the messaging around you get to own your weights. And I think it's one of the messages that Mistral and others really emphasize. And I think it'll be interesting to see over time how important that actually is to customers. But another entrant into the open source alternative.
You put it as essential. My goodness.
I put it essential only because I just put essentials because I do think it's important for people on the consumer side. I do suspect that model's trained on Twitter and has slightly different attitudes for fun. Remember, they have the fun mode. So if you are a relevant brand and you want an open source that's got a little more attitude, this may be an option. But I don't feel strongly about essential, but I did put essential.
A weak essential.
Weak
Okay.
essential, right.
Weak essential.
I'll just add, it's not clear to me, but best I can tell, as it says in this tweet there, the weights are out. I don't think the code itself is open source. As he comments, it's more open source than other open weights, which usually come with usage restrictions, but it's less open source than actual open source models. So I think even the title of this article is a bit misleading. And more we're seeing people coming out with open weight models, but they're not actually fully releasing the code like an open source model, like what Meta is truly doing with Llama.
Or the training
I
data,
considered it optional, but we could land in the middle.
Yeah, or the training data, which I don't even think Meta releases. So again, this is like saying SAP is open source because you can configure it with parameters.
So where do you guys come out on the rating? Paul's at a weak essential. Are we sliding toward important or optional here?
I think this might be the fourth optional. I think we got an optional streak.
This was optional to me. And the reason is because Grok is just not making an impression on the market. Maybe it will eventually, but right now it is a weak entrant. Nobody's using it that I know.
Yeah, I would give it an optional as well. I mean, this is whatever, Elon Musk flailing around here. Good problems to have, right? The ability to drop billions of dollars and just hack around with an asset you bought for, was it 44 billion he paid for X? Anyway, okay. Well, I'm going to give it an optional. All right, we are an optional on that one. Sorry about that, Paul. All right, plentiful, high-paying jobs in AI. Adam, what do you think of this comparative advantage argument?
There's some really interesting insights in this. I think the most I could go up to would be important, but it is also a very long article, and important for me means read this when you have time over the weekend. And I'm not sure I could ask someone to do that. It might be enough to just get our summary of the optional news. But I'll say a little bit about what Noah Smith, who wrote this blog, in his opinion, says in there, which is a little controversial, but I also think refreshing. So he really counters the view that there's going to be a lot of AI job loss, and really proposes that there's going to be more job evolution than elimination, which isn't, historically, that's what we've continued to see. And AI may, if he's right, prove to be no different. He talks about what's known as comparative advantage. And the concept is, as they discuss in the article, if you have someone who's good at surgery and also at knitting, the opportunity cost of spending your time knitting might not make it worthwhile to do the knitting. So the concept is that if there are two jobs that an AI is really good at, the AI will focus on the one that can generate more value or more revenue, and leave a lot of roles for humans that AIs could be doing, but because of the opportunity cost, they aren't. So I guess for the AI leader, it's really worth thinking about how do you upskill and how do you take this sort of information into consideration long term. But like I said, it's a pretty lengthy article, and overall, I'd have to say it's optional news.
Yeah, this is an article for John and his friends. The AI leader, if they're interested in learning more about comparative advantage and structural economics, great. But it's total speculation. And there's some huge speculation like that there really will be constraints of compute power, which there have been to a certain extent, but actually we've reached points where the thresholds have gotten high enough, like bandwidth. A lot of people don't argue about bandwidth anymore. For a long time, bandwidth was a tremendous constraint on activity, and not so much anymore. So you can make all sorts of arguments here, but they're arguments for the HBS professors, not for the person trying to make AI decisions.
Paul, you're an HBS grad and also a software entrepreneur. What do you think on this one?
I think we're learning a lot, but no strong opinions right now. I'm going to let the audience roll.
Okay, I'm going to argue for important here, although it's kind of like remedial economics. Yeah. This is one of those things that it's kind of like when you listen to the AI technologists, talk about epistemology and reality and thinking and consciousness, you realize that, if they did ever take a philosophy class, they were asleep, or, same thing here. I guess they never took an economics class because this is, economics 101, but I was going to say important just because, he does a good job of laying out, compare the basics of comparative economics across different input and, demand, production capabilities. So I don't know.
John, I was an econ major, and I think this is chapter 1, page 4 of micro intro.
Yeah.
It's laughable. Yeah.
Yeah, but the ignorance of these technologists on liberal arts education is just amazing. Anyway, let's give it an optional, but it's a well-argued, sad state of affairs. Okay, last one. We have John Holland, not a human, but a construction company doing fantastic things with Copilot, so they say.
Yeah, should probably have given this one to Adam because they're Australian, but I would rate this one important because, again, if you're an AI leader and you need to make the case that this stuff is really important and getting use all over the place, case one, construction, which is not what most people think of as a leading adopter of leading edge technology, and yet they're adopting it throughout, not just in some narrow way. They're using Copilot. They've even done some metrics, and guess what? Came out about 12% productivity improvement per employee, which is pretty substantial. And they're using it in just the ways you think, for proposals, for emailing, again, with human in the loop and supervision. Just one more good example. So I'd want I'd want as many of these as I could in my back pocket if I was an AI leader. So I think it's important.
All right, important. Anybody going for essential? No, important. All right, that's a great case.
I'll add one insight. I did notice, and they mentioned it pretty early on in the article, that along with using Copilot, they actually partnered with Microsoft to create their own custom version of ChatGPT.
Right.
And that's something that doesn't get discussed very often, and it's important for our AI leaders to be aware of this path. It's sort of along the lines of building your own model, but it's really creating a fine-tuned model in partnership with OpenAI, and that's an avenue that was taken here by them, and it's good to be aware of.
That's right.
Yeah.
Instead of using RAG, they just took the whole model internal so they could protect their data.
And I just want to highlight, Tim, your point on this non-traditional early adopting industry. I mean, I think if you look at healthcare and construction, both historically have never been early adopters of technology. And we're seeing, actually those two, and heavy manufacturing with the Mercedes one, just seeing all three with this technology actually coming out with the use cases.
Yep. And it goes back to a point I think John's been making forever, which is the return on this stuff is very fast. And so even fairly staid industries can adopt this pretty quickly because it's not like it's a 5-year investment.
And they have a CFO who likes 12-month paybacks. So 12-month paybacks, they go through.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I'm definitely would go to important. I might even go to essential because, I do think that 24, 25 are the years of, vertical integration of old data sets into intelligence. And here's another example, as you're saying, Adam, that this is really, when they're doing their own model and so forth. And that'll take a little while for a competitor to, to catch up, right? It's not going to be easy. I think they'll have improvements and, training and things like that. But I do think there's a learning effect here, both in organizational capability and the model itself that,
Absolutely.
it's back to the old Bruce Henderson, learning curve. You put more volume through this stuff, you're going to get lower cost marginal economics. And that's a hard thing to catch. So I don't know. Let's get wild here. Let's call it essential. Okay.
We'll also add there. It's pretty impressive when you think they have 200 unique daily users. Like that's pretty good adoption.
Yeah,
and half a dozen times a day. So these people are not just like every once in a while I use this thing. These people are clearly using it every day on a regular basis for several tasks.
Essential it is, John. You got it.
It's Michael Novak is afraid that we're being a Microsoft shill here, that this is just promotional material for Microsoft, but you do actually have the client there, so forth. So maybe they're getting a discount, but I think that I'm going to put it up to essential. All right. So today we have saved you some time because 5 out of the 6 are rated optional. Let me do the review slide here. Let me share this. Let's see, present, share screen. Okay. All right. Let's do that. Share and put it into slideshow mode. Here we go. So today we have our ratings. Red Team optional, Apple optional, Mercedes optional, Grok optional. Rudimentary comparative advantage tutorial by a technologist optional. And John Holland from Australia, embracing AI essential. Give you a great case study if you're going for dough, and also in our wins framework, an organization holding a lever, trying to get productivity from our new technologies.
We're fighting great inflation.
We are fighting great inflation. That's right. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate your participation. Paul, you want to tell us what's going on tonight in the Learning Lab?
Absolutely, John. Tonight we have one of our own, David DeLallo, is the showcase, and he's going to walk through how he uses Gen AI and a few other tools to create very unique comic strips. So people may have seen these on LinkedIn. These are 3 to 4 quadrant comic strips. But he's going to talk through how he's got worked through the challenges, having the words look the same or words be correct, and some of the images. So a really good.
They're awesome, by the way. So everybody should subscribe to and follow David on LinkedIn, because his once a week comics on Sunday are definitely worth the effort.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Just to be a pain in the neck, Paul, you can't have 3 quadrants. Anyway,
Go to my coffee.
He's a Harvard Business School grad.
No, but I think what's really interesting about David's work, and I'm on the board of a promotional products company, and we're talking about this, that the relationship between generative AI and its ability to precisely lay down images isn't quite right there yet. And so David talking through how do you get creativity and control in the context of these tools, and what he needs to do, I think, is super practical for anybody who wants to generate images with real control over the image itself, the text, and so forth in a robust way. And David's living that every week.
Well, one of the things with that, John, is I just want to highlight also on the creator economy. I mean, we are now seeing dozens of people who are become video creators on TikTok and get to a revenue resource. I know one my wife was showing me, a guy just does funny dog videos that people send to him, and he does voiceover. And now he's got 2 national contracts. So I think this is also another set of tools in the creator toolkit.
Back to comparative advantage. I love it.
I was just going to say that. more cat and dog videos.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah,
think
we can't-
policymakers, back to comparative advantage, that's essential reading for policymakers. But other than policymakers, pretty optional. And we hope the policymakers already understand it, but
Yeah, whatever. All righty. Very good. See you all tomorrow morning. Come join us at the Learning Lab tonight. Should be an exciting and very practical set of insights. Bye-bye now.